And it was, I know what I need to know, which is that we are so much more than we think we are. That we are, amazing, energetic, infinite beings, that we are part of everything and each other. That's what I was trying to remember.
My name is Zenka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and I love to study how people do impossible things, and Sandi is one of those people. From an early age, she was told it was impossible to become a writer, that she should become a typist. And not only did she become a writer, but she supported relentlessly all these other incredible writers that are showing up today with brilliant new ideas that are forging our evolution, our open mind, and the possibilities that lie ahead. She's founded the No BS Spiritual Book Club, which shows the top 10 books of some of the most interesting people on the planet. She's also been a talk show host, and she ghostwrites, produces films, helps people self-publish, and really is an advocate for all of these incredible thinkers in the world in beautiful and creative ways. She's brilliant. Every word she chooses is brilliant, and she's a great interviewer, and we're so happy and proud to have her part of the Purpose Lab, interviewing incredible people to inspire you.
I'm a shameless sharer. That's my passion and purpose. I love gathering knowledge, finding truths and sharing them with people, and sharing people with people. Yeah, there was. All my life I've been interested in searching for knowledge. There's a truth that I was trying to find. I knew something was out there somewhere, but I thought my life was about me and the ambitions that I had. I told my mother at the age of 4 that I was going to be a famous writer. I don't know how a child would even know what a famous writer is, but I knew that I wanted to write. I knew books were in my life, and I was going to write lots of books and become very famous. And I did. I had, some fame, and one day I had a download, and it's too long to go into now, but out of that download came the understanding that it really wasn't about me. It was about remembering something that I knew and had forgotten. And I had to find that. I had to go and research and read and do as much, discovery as I could. And then a few years later, I realised that I had remembered. I remembered what was important and what I was here to do. And that is to share people, to find knowledge, to help other people remember who they are. I knew that books were in my future. I knew that I wanted to write. I didn't know how that was going to happen. My mother was a single parent, 5 children she had to take care of. And what she wanted me to do was to go out and get a job. And she wanted me to be a typist. And even when I started writing books, she couldn't get her head around the fact that I wasn't a typist. Every time I spoke to her, she'd say, "Have you got lots of typing to do this week?" And I'd say yes. She didn't know what I was typing. I was writing books. Books just have been such a huge part of my life. I couldn't imagine a life without books. I've always been an avid reader. I help people write books. I've written books of my own. I love to help people tell the stories that they feel they would like to share with the world. I edit, I judge books, I read a lot of books because I also interview a lot of people. And that is a wonderful way of keeping books in my life, of serving this desire in me to just know everything. I also started the No BS Spiritual Book Club, and this was something that I felt was becoming a necessity for people because there are so many books being published, especially spiritual books. There are so many people waking up looking for answers. They don't know where to find them. And there's an awful lot of books out there that are, quite frankly, just fluff. So I wanted to find what are the most important books. And I'd interviewed so many people that I decided I would ask them what were the 10 books that influenced them the most on their life journey. Because if people could relate to these authors, these spiritual teachers, and the books that they read that changed their life, they would be more inclined to find the ones that were going to change their lives. Growing up, there used to be a choking feeling, a real tightness within me, because I had this awful thought that I could not bear dying and not knowing it all. I don't know what it all was, but I had this feeling, I've got to know something, and I can't believe that, it would be terrible. So it wasn't knowing something, it was remembering something. That was the choking feeling. I have to remember. And when I did remember, that feeling went away. It's difficult to articulate and pinpoint one thing, but all of these books that I'd been reading, I mean, from 15, I was reading esoteric books, and some real, esoteric books. And I would have this feeling about books. I'd say, no, that one's not right. Yep, I'll take that. Something there. I didn't know how I knew that. But in 1987, which was the year of the Harmonic Convergence, and I didn't know that till much later, something happened at some point, and I realised that all of this looking that I was doing for something out there, it went away, that feeling. And it was, I know what I need to know, which is that we are so much more than we think we are. That we are, amazing, energetic, infinite beings, that we are part of everything and each other. That's what I was trying to remember. Well, up until, I would say, my late 30s, early 40s, it was still, to a large part, about me becoming this famous writer. That was a hard road, very hard road, because I was the wrong class. I didn't have the resources to be able to do that, but I made sure that the first job I got was on a magazine. And then I went from magazine to magazine, and then I started writing for magazines, and then gradually I moved into being able to, to write in books and having them published. After that, it was a whole other ballgame. I think that once I had this understanding of I was trying to remember something, my entire career focus changed. I realised that I had work to do on myself, that I had been chasing fame for all the wrong reasons, and that it wasn't going to give me what I'd been looking for. And I knew that I had to just kind of go within, spend some time working on me and reevaluating what I wanted in my life. And out of that came this absolute knowing that I had to go to America. I had to go to America because I was going to find something there that was going to be pivotal in helping me move forward in whatever it was I had come to do. At that point, I didn't realise that what I'd come to do was to share, to connect people with information and knowledge. But once I knew that I had to come to America, which was a huge thing, it meant leaving my children, my family, my mother, everything. I mean, it was as scary as hell. But I knew I had to do this. So I just said to the universe, okay, well, I'm not going anywhere cold. So after that moment, once I said yes, everything, and I mean everything, fell into place for me. Everything happened by sheer synchronicity. I went to Canada. I was staying with my sister. Before I went to Canada, there had been 2 job opportunities that arose, and I knew I had to get a work permit to get into America. I didn't have a degree, but after a period of showing people or showing the authorities what I had done throughout my career, they gave me the go-ahead, because I had the equivalent experience that they were looking for. But, from getting the work permit to moving to San Diego, I mean, all of these things just happened. They appeared out of nowhere. But the job itself in San Diego was one that I had been considering before I got to Canada, and it suddenly disappeared off the radar. When I was in Canada, first night, I decided, okay, I've had 2 months of enjoying myself. Now I need to look for this job to get me to America. I went on Monster Board, and right there was the same job. So I wrote to the guy and I said, I'm in North America now and I'm still interested in this job. Is it still open? And he said, well, come to San Diego and let's talk about it. Do it on your dime. So I thought, I am going to make this happen. I found a book that literally fell. We hear this so many times where books just fall off bookshelves in a second-hand bookstore. Book about the silver method of mind control, and I decided this is what I'm going to master, and that job is mine. So for 2 weeks, every night I practiced, but I decided that I wanted to know for certain that it was me that had created this. So I built 3 things that were unlikely into this visualization. Every night I would do the same visualization, same 3 things. So when I got to America, I was sitting in this guy's office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we were talking, and at 10 o'clock he suddenly said, you've got the job. That was the first thing that I had built into this. So then he asked his secretary to get their attorney on the phone, how are we going to do this? You're going to be here for another couple of hours while we work out the logistics. And then about an hour later, he said to me, let's go to lunch. That was the second thing I'd built into it. And after lunch, the third thing that I'd built into it happened when he said, I'm going to drive you around San Diego so you can see your new home. So I went back to the hotel and I thought, yes, I've done it. I'm a creator. And then I called my sister and told her that I'd got the job, everything had worked out. And within about 10 minutes, I had a feeling in my tummy. And I thought, my tummy is saying, this isn't right for you. But I had no option but to go ahead. So I did go ahead. I got the work permit. I worked with the company, but only for 6 months. And after 6 months, I started working for myself. But in that period, within 2 weeks of being in San Diego, I met my spiritual family. I met somebody who said to me, I've been wanting to start an online magazine. We don't know how to do it. You have a magazine background. Would you like to do it? So I did it. We created this very successful spiritual magazine, which put me straight in the path of all the spiritual teachers that I'd been reading about. And from that moment, I would say that I really woke up. The information that I needed came to me thick and fast, and my growth kind of accelerated beyond, it was amazing, really amazing. I think we're all creator beings. I think that if we are sparks of God, consciousness, the universe, whatever you want to call it, then we have exactly the same, talent, skills, facilities. We can create magic. We can create. And I think that if we just have to believe we do. I needed to believe that I had that ability. And I think that's why I built those 3 things into that visualization. And I've created so many things since that people would say, that's impossible. You can't achieve that. And I've done it. And we all have the ability. We just have to believe that we are creator beings. I was interviewed recently by somebody who has written a book about synchronicity and is studying it. And I think you cannot divide synchronicity from intention. I think intention is part of the magnetic attraction to draw things to you. Thoughts are electric, emotions are magnetic. And I think that synchronicity happens when you believe that it can happen, when you believe you can have what you want and that things are just going to show up for you. A lot of people say they don't know what their calling is, but I think we do. We just don't recognize the clues. If we go back to childhood and think about what was it that made our hearts sing, what was the thing that gave us the most joy, within that we will find that there is something, whether it's dancing, whether it's singing, whether it's writing, as it was for me, whether it is something else. There are pointers. I think the biggest challenge is that as we grow, we have self-belief conditioned out of us, and we begin to forget all of these things, and we lose our faith in ourselves. We think, I've got to be a typist because that's what my mother wants me to be. Who am I to have big ideas, big ambitions? I think this dumbing down of who we really are is, it is very insidious. And it goes on happening through childhood, through early adulthood. There's a system out there, if we want a successful life, we've got to do this, we've got to study that, we've got to get that kind of job, we've got to have the home, the car. That conditioning is so strong. But if we can push that aside and say, who am I? What do I want? What makes my soul sing? We will find what our purpose is. Because the feeling that we get when we live in our purpose is so different than the feeling we have when we're not. I think it's alignment. I think it's a connection to our soul, to our higher self. When we become fully aligned, it's such a joyful feeling. It's such a natural, I can rest in this kind of feeling. It's a knowingness. It's, it's just getting into alignment. I think that we are trained to forget our soul, ignore our soul, and just be this human being and do what human beings do. But when we realise that we are so much more than that, and we can kind of slip into that, it's there's a feeling, when we know we're in the right place, when we know that everything is running smoothly, it's that joy, it's that connection, it's that everything feels right. I'm a great believer in self-knowledge. I think to know thyself is one of the most important things that we can do when we're here. I was always very, very curious about things like astrology, numerology, palmistry, human design, gene keys, all of the tools that can help us know who we are. Because we might have ideas, we might have inklings, but we're trained to be so, certainly in England, you don't push yourself forward, you don't have big ideas, you don't big yourself up. Who are you to be thinking those things? And so we push those things aside. But when we start studying astrology or numerology or human design, and we get the confirmation of certain things, that is the first thing I think that people should be doing, is know thyself in whatever way that's going to come to you. Find out what your skills, and ask other people. We're so afraid of asking someone, tell me what you see in me. Tell me what you know about me that I don't know about myself. And I think if we could just get over that barrier and get over the embarrassment of asking those questions, learn more about ourselves, we would then say, yeah, I had an inkling about that, or I've always liked that, or I've always been drawn to that. And that's one of the first things that we can do. The world would be a completely different place if we were all living in our purpose. when you're living in your purpose, it's what I said about alignment, that feeling within you that everything is right. It's a bit like being in love. You know, you fall in love with someone and the world is just such a beautiful place. Everything within you, every cell is singing, and there is no room for anything negative in that space. No room for hate, no room for, meanness, no room for negativity at all. I think if we were all living our purpose, we would be living in that state of being, and the world would be a vastly different place. I believe that everything we need to know is inside us. We've lost touch with it. I used to wake people up without even knowing that I was waking them up by sharing the latest book I'd been reading or this piece of astrology or something. And then these people would go off and suddenly they're completely connected to themselves. And I'm thinking, I'm left behind. Why am I not doing the things they're doing? Why am I not getting all of this knowledge, this, sixth sense? What I didn't realise until much later, that I actually had a very good connection with my inner GPS, my inner guidance system. And I used to think that it was, I've studied body language, so I'm just reading people. Or, I've studied NLP or psychology, I'm reading people. I was reading people in a whole other way. And it became clear to me one day when as an editor, I'm very good at spotting typos. And I remember standing in the doorway of a client whose book I was writing. I'd just come into the room and I looked at his screen and said, there's a typo there. And he said, how do you do that? How do you know that? You're on the other side of the room. And I thought about it and I used an NLP technique to discover how do I do that? And I realised that what's going on is that my brain, my eyes are seeing a pattern that is not correct. And it's as if my brain in, speed up time goes inside what's wrong, what's not correct. And I have a feeling in my tummy that tells me something's out, something's not right. And so this ability, and it is something that I've learned is an amazing sixth sense. I know when someone isn't telling the truth. I know when they're not being authentic. I know when something isn't right. And I know it because I have what I call a typo in my tummy. So I've learned to recognize this little quiet voice or feeling in my gut that says, pay attention, pay attention. So yeah, my typo in my tummy is my inner guidance.